Today, that makes this.
Time being 7 o'clock, I would like to open up the regular scheduled council meeting of the town of Copper Canyon, Monday, April 11th, 2022. If you all please stand, face the flag, and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one and same, under God, one and indivisible. First item of business tonight is public input. Anyone may speak during the public input on an agenda or non-agenda item for a period of 3 minutes. Anyone that would need more time may request more time by the consensus of the majority of council. First person to speak tonight is Allison Hunt on Knoll Road.
Yes.
Yeah, right there, please. Yes.
Before I start, if I have to leave, I have to get back to work. So
Oh, fine.
I apologize in advance. I'm not leaving for any other reason. My name's Allison Hunt. I live at 750 Knoll Road, which is right up against the Creek Line and Estates Bridge. I live there with my husband and our 2 little ones, and we've been here since 2013. We moved here. So my biggest concerns is we have some flooding issues. I think most of the council might know about it. We've emailed already probably over the last few years, to be honest. Even with the previous council, we talked about it. But what's happened more recently in the past couple of years is we have a retaining wall that's back there that has since collapsed with that flooding. And I guess what I want to clarify with the flooding is not necessarily the amount of water that we're getting, but more so the rate of the water. We've seen that rate really increase. And that comes so fast that what's happened is our property line is shaped kind of like a W. So the water comes so fast that it blasts into that sidewall where that retaining wall was, and that has collapsed. So we've talked about this. I've talked about this with Mayor Ron, and I had Councilman Andrews come out, and Chris Harkey came out, and we looked into the possibility of gabion baskets, putting that up there. And I went and got somebody to give me a quote for that, and we found out that a 16 by 60 foot wall is $260,000. And that's really my only wall choice because everything else would just fall apart. We have full-size trees that come down that. It's a rushing river. It's not really a creek when it's like that. So we have full-size trees, we have railroad ties, we have everything that comes down that and has just completely deteriorated that wall, and it's sinking there. So it's really not safe, like for my family, for our animals, for my kids. It's a eyesore. There's a big crater there now, and it's really devalued our property quite a bit. So those are my biggest concerns personally. We've also talked about the bridge right there, and that was brought up with the study as well. The water touches the bottom of that bridge when it really rains hard, and I think they found that it can go up to as high as 3.5 feet over the bridge potentially. And that hasn't happened, I don't think, yet since I've been here, but if it did ever happen, there's 7 families back there that would be stuck if that happened, because we have no other way out. So that was the other concern, is just for the bridge. I wrote a letter actually to the council and had all the neighbors that I could find sign it. And I just never heard anything back about that. So I'm kind of at a standstill right now. We can't afford a $260,000 wall. So I'm just looking for suggestions. I just kind of wanted to make a public, I guess, note on this issue because I am one of the families affected. We're the house that's between the 2 houses that were the buyout houses in the plan that I know is not happening, but we're that house that's right in the middle. My house is not in the floodplain, but our property is, and just it's really the rate that's killing us, and that's forcing us to try to get that one kind of wall. Another suggestion is maybe straightening the creek would be the other thing that maybe is a possibility. I don't know, but we're just at a standstill right now. So we're just looking for help. But that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Donna, what I'd like to do is sometime in the next month, whenever we put it together, is get that group of homeowners and invite Chris, and we'll have a meeting here and walk everything. You, myself, Chris, the homeowners of that subdivision, and we can sit down and explain it all to you and have Chris here. And that way we can maybe not answer all your questions, but at least you'll know where we're at, what it'll take. So Next person, Kathleen Bowling.
Hello, I'm Kathleen Boland. I live at, I need to keep, oh, okay. I would take this off if I could. Okay. Hello, I'm Kathleen Vickery Boland, and do I need to give my address? 8716 Gardenia, Denton, Texas. We're landowners right off of 407 in Town Center North. And on behalf of the Vickery family, we appreciate this opportunity to come before the mayor, the council members, town administrator, the town secretary, and all of you to share the significant journey that has brought us together to consider and approve this access agreement. Our family has been working hard with Mr. Dave Siciliano and the town staff to finalize the terms of the proposed access agreement. The proposed agreement allows Mr. Dave Siciliano to build a joint entry driveway to his property and our property and the Vickery land as described in this agreement, which our family will be dedicating to the town as a right-of-way when this agreement is approved and signed. This agreement will result in fewer curb cuts along the north side of Farm Road 407 because these two properties will share a driveway instead of each having its own separate entrance. Also, this driveway will align with the Toll Brothers Street on the south side of Farm Road 407, which makes sense from a transportation standpoint. We are very excited about this opportunity to work together with the town and Mr. Dave Siciliano and ask that you approve this agreement. Thank you on behalf of all the Vickery family.
Roger Foster.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, I'm Roger Foster. My wife, Khaki Roberts Libbert, and I live at 484 Copper Canyon Road on approximately 120 acres, which I will refer to as Khaki's Ranch. On Saturday, April 2, Chase Libbert, who's Khaki's son and candidate for city council, received a text from Derek Verstadt that read, "Hey Chase, do you know the city councilman Jeff Mayer? He stopped by Boots Ranch today to ask if we knew that our street wood could be used to haul horses in and out of the riding area. Not sure what his motive is." Last week, another neighbor sent Khaki a text that read, "We were approached by Jeff Mayer, Copper Canyon city councilman, about a week ago. He was asking if we knew there was a private drive that connected to our cul-de-sac and that the horse and cattle trailers would be coming through. We found it odd that he would randomly show up on a Saturday afternoon to ask us these things. There is an existing road that has been used for those cattle purposes for over 40 years. On March 21, Jeff Mayer sent an email to Christopher Hartke, city engineer, which states, "It has come to my attention that there have been some dump trucks full of ground materials being dumped on the property of 655 South Copper Woods, Copper Canyon. The dumping could include contaminated soil or debris. For your information, 655 South Copper Wood is an address on Khaki's Ranch." Here is a photo of a pile of 4 piles of dirt on Robin Douglas Davis property. Was her dirt inspected by the city? On March 25, Jeff Mayer sent an email to Donna Welsh that read, "It has come to my attention that there may be a violation of our zoning regulations through the use of a travel trailer for home use located on the property 655 South Copper Woods. This trailer may be being used for home occupation or household purposes. There are dozens of travel trailers in Copper Canyon. Is the city investigating any of those? Is the city trying to single out my wife and family for alleged violations that no other citizens have been subjected to? Are Jeff Mayer's actions merely retaliation against Chase Libbert for running for his seat on the city council in this election? I'm an attorney licensed to practice law in the state and federal courts in Texas, Oklahoma, and Florida, and a former prosecuting attorney. The city enjoys governmental immunity, but when you interfere with the use and enjoyment of private property rights while acting under color of law, you lose that immunity. And each such case is a misdemeanor. You might want to look over Title 18 USC and Texas Penal Code, Section 39, which I include in this written summary. I have stayed out of this until now. However, when you target my wife,
Council, you want to extend the time? Consensus approval.
I'm sorry.
Continue consensus
Yeah.
approval.
I've stayed out of this until now. However, when you target my wife, my family, attempt to alienate our neighbors, I can no longer sit on the sidelines. If you're going to continue this outrageous conduct, you better bring your lunch. I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. I have a copy of this that I'd like to attach to the minutes of this meeting, and I have a copy for each of the councilmen. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Next item is staff and mayor's report. Council, I have, I'll read it if you don't mind. Hello, Mr. Mayor. My name is James Preston. I am the event manager for Tunnels to Tower Foundation. On Wednesday, April 13th, 2022 at 11 a.m., Tunnels to Tower Foundation will welcome U.S. Army Specialist Jason Wheeler to a mortgage-free smart home in Copper Canyon, Texas. This is really a pretty cool thing for Mr. Wheeler. I actually have a kind of a personal connection. I didn't know that until recently. My daughter is a veterans advocate, and she's helped him get a lot of his benefits from the past. And I have a dear friend who's their next door neighbor. So on Wednesday at 11 o'clock, they will be dedicating a smart free home to Specialist Wheeler. So I think that's pass that along for everybody to know. Any council reports, liaison reports?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, I have one quick report if I could. This past week or a week and a half ago, I was made aware that folks that are using the equestrian trails are encountering an increasing number of bicyclists and mountain bikers and people on wheeled vehicles. Unfortunately, those trails are strictly limited to walking and equestrian activities. It puts the horses in danger, the riders and other folks. So I contacted Donna and she helped me with contact with Captain Pena. And as I believe today, we now have authorization for our sheriffs to patrol the entries and exits and begin educating the public that bicycles are not allowed and there is a penalty if you get caught on the trails. The other thing that's coming up, because I believe we just finished reworking the contract with Corps of Engineers, we're going to be putting mile markers and reworking the signs, which is part of our contract with the Corps. So you can see, for those of you that ride the horses on the trails, you'll be seeing those. And when you see the sheriffs out there, they're out there to keep the trails safe for you. And Donna's the one who primarily did a lot of the work on this. Thank you.
Councilmember Andrews, I'm not, Miss Hunt, Allison Hunt, would you
Yeah,
organize
I'd be
that?
glad to. Yes, myself and Mr. Haney, Chris went out there, the engineer, and met with Miss Allison, her husband, and it was quite an experience as far as opening their eyes to what can be done with water and what it does. And she lives in, like she said, a kind of a W, but it's kind of along long S's. And so as the water comes down, it bounces off one wall to the next wall and so on and so forth. And I guess when, I don't know what year that subdivision was kind of developed in there, but they used a lot of cross ties then to make these walls, and they were real tall. And unfortunately, cross tie walls about 25 years old, they're dead. They're going down a creek. That's what happens. And unfortunately, this is what's happened to hers, and it eroded out to the bottom. And the top kept falling down, and it just kept going down, and then it started encroaching backwards. And it's really heartbreaking. I mean, I really understand. being somewhat in the construction business all my life, and I've repaired a lot of these in Dallas. And I know they're expensive. I don't know if they're that expensive, but I'll just take the man that got an estimate. But and so what we did, we met there and Chris, keep on saying somebody else. But anyway, he explained to them what was really going in detail. I went out there with him because I didn't just want to be the one sole leading the charge, so to speak, to talk to them. Because as a citizen, they have every right to call. We have every responsive. It's our duty to respond in time, fashion, and we were prompt. I think we set up the appointment. We went out, met with them, and I explained eventually that really the city is kind of handcuffed here. And here's why. Because we have a state law that this city abides by. The state law says that we can't work on private property. That's against the law. My heart says, I want to fix it. We don't have any money to fix it, but I want to fix it. And so then we suggested that Chris gave her a report and some options. So he wrote up a report, got back with her, as well as I contacted her and told her the report was coming, I believe. And if I look back on my notes, but anyway, so we met, we sent the report out. And so then I got the report back later from her about the estimate. And she told me, I think we talked on the phone, and I believe that's true. And so anyway, that I didn't know of any money. I would contact around to see if there was any funds available that could help in a situation like this from either county or state or FEMA, anywhere. We didn't care where the money come from. As long as there's money coming, we don't care. And so we didn't find any. And so I requested Donna. She looked through her repertoire of people to check in with. And unfortunately, to this point, unless there's something changed that I don't know about, that has been kind of a blunt dead end. Now, what do? That's a good question, because they do have a problem, and it's kind of sandy soil. And so therefore, the more you knock off the bottom, it just kind of keeps growing backward here. And I don't remember, but it's probably 20 plus feet, I guess, deep in that. How much?
16.
16, okay. I said it correct. But it's a long way down. I knew I didn't want to stand on the edge, because I didn't want to go down the bottom of the creek, But the property line runs to the middle of the creek. So therefore, it makes it difficult. It's a very, very difficult situation. And I'm glad the mayor here suggested that you can bring them in, talk to them. Maybe we can find something else. I don't know.
Yeah, I think,
But anyway, that's my summary on it. Okay?
Thank
Any questions?
no, but I would like to bring Chris in along with them and yourself and Donna and see if there's some magic out there that we figured out how to fix the 606 and 6th Creek on Gin Chapel. I don't know what's out there. I know we can't spend tax dollars on private property. There might be some grants out there. I don't know. I don't know.
The one thing we looked at was we haven't received approval, but we have received approval for $390,000. But the federal government, we're very limited in what you can use those funds. And that part of the grant I'm working on now, it looks like the, say, 40,000 we spent on Poindexter, we'll be able to pay out of those funds and put that money back in the budget. The one thing we looked at was along Copper Canyon Road in the Encore easement to put a huge retention pond there, just to slow it down, little weird, just so it doesn't rush through Copper Canyon. It's one of the things we're looking at, that possibly we could use that money that's freed up for that, but that's as far as we've gotten.
The assumption that we're not doing anything on flooding is not a good assumption. We are, and we have. Donna's been working on federal grants on this money to get this money, and we're trying to figure out the best way where's the best way to spend it. So we are working on it. We want to help you. So it's just a matter of time.
Is there a bridge plan at all for that stage?
Not at this point. Not at this point. But that would, and just to prolong this, but anything we do to that effect is going to require a bond election in the city. So if we're going to do that at some point, you kind of wrap up a whole bunch of projects and you go out and borrow, I don't know, $3 million, whatever that number is. I'm just throwing a number out there. So I'm sure it'll be in the newspaper or a postcard next week. But, but that's what you would have to do. And then the citizens would have to vote on that to approve it. For the council to approve $3 million bond sale would be a GO, not a CO, and probably would not go over well. So that's the only way to resolve those things. So it's a process. So anyway, thank you. And we'll be back in touch. Anyone else, council? Anything? Next item is consent agenda. Any item on the consent agenda may be removed by any member of council for individual discussion or consideration. 2 items is March 14 minutes and approval of the March 2022 financials. Anything to be removed?
Yeah, I have a couple things, please, with the, Mr. Mayor, on the agenda for the March 14th minutes.
Okay.
I've already asked Sheila if she could attach my proposal that we had last month that was turned down and stuff, and to the minutes so that people know what the plan was, or the minutes didn't fully explain what that thing was that I proposed. So I asked that be attached into the minutes.
Okay.
And I also would like to change my vote, if I would, on the issue of the signs and the political signs, since we moved everything to, and I asked this question of our lawyer last week, since we moved everything to private property only, and it's not very funny, I don't appreciate the giggling, but since we moved everything to private property only, then I think a person should be allowed to be able to put up whatever signs they want and within the number of signs. So I'd like to change my vote on that.
If you want to change your vote, sir, you're going to have to request another agenda item and have this question brought back so you can revote your question. The vote's been recorded and has been.
I think the ordinances say, sir, that you can change your vote, adjust at the meeting next prior to the approval of the meeting minutes.
I would argue that
I've
I would
done
have
that
to ask,
before.
I would refer to the attorney for an opinion if, at this point, I'm gonna say if you would like to have that change your vote, it'd be like a 3-2 vote for a development and all at once, another council member wants to change his vote a month later, then development fails, and it passed before. It doesn't make sense. If you ask with Bob, see if that's possible, you're welcome to put it on the next set of minutes. Or if he says it needs to be revoted, then it'd have to be another agenda item.
So, Mr. Mayor, on the first item, I'm not in favor of the agenda. That was a communist proletariat proposal, and I'm not in favor of amending that.
Okay. If he's not in favor.
The first request was to amend the minutes of the council meeting. I'm not in favor of
Well, I
that.
would require Councilmember Johnson, I would require a motion to approve the minutes as is.
I
And
move
we would
to,
have to have a second.
I move to approve the minutes as is.
I have a motion to approve the minutes as is. And also the financials.
Move for that also.
Okay, by Councilmember Johnson. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I have a second by Councilmember Castillo. All in favor to approve the minutes as is?
Aye.
Aye.
4-2.
No.
No. Councilmember Mayor, no. Next item is discussion, consideration of taking action on a 3-party agreement for dedication of a development of right-of-way among the the Vickery Family Limited Partnership and the Texas Limited Partnership Vickery Williams Ranch 2022 LLC, etc. This is the dedication of the right-of-way for the Williams Ranch. Just to clear up any questions about the documents that were put when this item passed, 3 attorneys have been working on this agreement for the last 3 weeks. The attorneys, the Vickery attorney, the Siciliano attorney, and the town attorney. This document is to allow the parties to plan for the entrance off of FM 407 as a project moves forward with the development plan and text dot review. The document could be amended. The exhibit is in your packet and was labeled as access easement. So There was questions, I know from a former council member that the document was not correct. 3 attorneys have looked at it and suggested it moves forward. Council, any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'd entertain a motion.
I have a question about the document from Mr. Siciliano, if you don't mind,
Okay.
please, sir.
Yes, sir.
So I noticed on the, and I'm sure the document is highly well written, there's lots of pages to it and everything like that. We all have it out in front of us, Mr. Siciliano. The question I have is, there's no deceleration lane for westbound traffic into that entryway on the north side of 407. How many entryways have you designed or you worked that don't have a deceleration lane on a highway that has a speed of 45 miles an hour listed on it?
The deceleration lane depends on traffic, and we were told by the town engineer that a traffic study is not required to do 30 lots. If TxDOT comes back and requires something like that, so obviously we'll respond to it. So this is an application that goes in, it goes for TxDOT review. The town has no requirement for a decel lane for 30 lots. We're receptive if TxDOT requires it. We've designed it to TxDOT standards and the town standards.
I was just out on 407. I drove it just before this meeting. And I'm telling you that the traffic was backed up all the way to this entryway from the corner of Copper Canyon Road and 407.
You realize that will go on TxDOT right away.
I get that.
So I can't grant that without TxDOT approving it.
Okay, well, are you planning on putting a deceleration lane in?
If TxDOT requires it, it's their property.
All right, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I can't do it.
Because I think
Yeah.
for safety for the people driving into this
Yeah.
entryway in the future, and our future citizens that are going to be joining us.
You know what I usually see happen there, Councilman, is the commercial, when it comes in, we usually have to do something like that. If we don't, if TxDOT comes back and requires it, it's their property. We certainly will do a TIA and comply, but usually the commercial is going to generate a large volume of traffic and they don't burden like 30 homes with something like that. But we're not fighting it. We just can't do it. Yeah. Yeah.
And I mentioned that before in the last time.
Yes.
Proposal, the deceleration lane, that's the biggest thing, the safety issue for those people.
I agree. We'll also have a construction entrance in there too that,
Mr. Mayor, I am, it's disturbing that we're talking about the Williams Ranch project. The reality is, and there's actually people in this room who live off of Jernigan Road. If you want to talk about a deceleration lane, that's where we ought to have a deceleration range. Now, if you go about 200 yards east of Jernigan Road, there is a deceleration road and a lane. And it's like, okay, Jeff, I would love to have one on Jernigan. I'd love to have one on the Williams Ranch. We are captive to TxDOT on this stuff. And you can, if you are a careful driver, navigate that. I drive that every day and I haven't seen what you just described. So maybe you're going at a time different than I am, but this is not perfect. I would love, and I agree with you, I'd love to get a deceleration range on each one of those roads, but Jernigan is a heck of a lot more important than the Williams Ranch.
I agree with that, Larry, but we're not talking about that right now. We're talking about this intersection. And
Well-
I'm just trying to ensure that all safety items are covered. And we bring this up to TxDOT and make sure that TxDOT, if they ask for a deceleration lane, it's drawn in the plans.
And
That's all.
you were just told it
Let
was.
me just briefly, gentlemen. I don't know how many of you up here have paid for a deceleration line, but I have. And in Frisco on Preston Road, I'm very familiar with this. And it was part of my process when I developed my land in Frisco. And I had to pay for it and I wasn't expecting it. but I had to, but it wasn't to Frisco, it was state highway that forced me to do that, and I just did it. State highway, if is going to force him to do that, it's not a question of this council or this city. It's a question of TxDOT. Doesn't matter where, we cannot touch that curb without the permission of TxDOT. We cannot expand that lane without the permission of TxDOT. So, and I know today's price for a deceleration lane would be probably close to $250,000. Probably well over 180,000, because I paid 150 5, 6 years ago. So, and that was on Preston Road. So,
Hey, Mr. Mayor, I appreciate
Anyway.
that. And my only point is I want people to understand that we're looking at that for them on this, when they purchase land out here and purchase a house here, that we looked at
Constantly.
this. And if it's required, it's going to be in there.
we do not want a citizen injured in our town or any of our citizens injured getting into our town. Council, is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion, we approve.
Right.
Is there an ordinance? This is no ordinance. It's just
No, there's no ordinance,
it's
just
the action
action item.
regarding the three-party agreement for dedication and development of the right-of-way along PM Vickery Family Limited Partnership, Williams Ranch.
I have a motion by the Mayor Pro Tem. Is there a second? I have a second by Councilmember Andrew. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No.
No, 4-1. Councilmember Mayor, no. Next item is anything to be put on the next agenda. Council, anything to be put on the next agenda? Hearing none, time being 7:30, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn. I have a motion to adjourn by the Mayor Pro Tem. The
Second.
second. I have a second by Councilmember Johnson. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Unanimous motion carries.